Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses. She's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Hey, turn your dial to the aisle for a while to the voice with a smile. I'm really screwing up my DJ patter here. Turn your dial to the for a while. I will get this right later on at some point after one of the breaks. Welcome along, everybody. I'm Adam Selzer, filling in for Patti Vasquez, who decided to go someplace warm for a while, this being Chicago in January, so she went to New Orleans, where they are now having the most snow they have ever seen in their whole entire lives. There's a durable legend that sometime in the early 1800s, they got a shipment of ice into New Orleans in the summertime, and the mayor immediately had them throw it into the river and melt it down. Now, they'd seen ice before. The river would ice over a little bit, but it was a general belief at the time that mixing ice into your water could kill you. Mixing ice, drinking stuff that was too cold. In the summertime, he was afraid people would use it to cool their drinks off, and that would kill people. Like Dr. Benjamin Rush said that killed several people a day in Philadelphia in those days. It still pops up occasionally. It comes up in my research. One of Johann Hawk's many wives' previous husband supposedly died that way. A guy whose name, in fact, was Johann Hawk. Johann would go on to steal that name and murder several people. So welcome, everybody. I'm Adam filling in. I've got Michael Glover Smith, a filmmaker and professor over here with me, and my partner on a book about Chicago's silent film industry that we put out almost 10 years ago now, wasn't it?
2015.
2015. Right. We got to do a 10-year anniversary edition then, man.
We should. Well, we have a lot of updates. We've
got a lot of updates. There's been movies that had not been discovered yet that have been. They're always finding new copies of old silent films in like barns and yard sales and stuff.
And then people's attics.
People's
grandparents' attics.
Yeah, people's grandparents' attics. So if you got grandparents, go dig through their attics now while they can still tell you what everything is. So yeah, Mike and I just got back from Tulsa about a month ago. We spent a week in the Bob Dylan archives there. We'll talk a bit more about that stuff pretty soon. But ice, we got snow all over New Orleans. We got snow all over the South, and now we've got another fire raging in Los Angeles County. I'm having to check on maps and see how close my brother is to that. He lives in northern Los Angeles himself. It looks so far it looks like it's a little further up than where he is, so I'm hoping everything's okay. My parents had a branch go through their roof in Georgia just the other day. But hey, climate change isn't real. They keep telling us. And, the term I have landed on for these people, I've got one, is I've been discussing this quite a bit on social media. Like the term oligarchy and oligarchs just sounds old-fashioned to me. You say that and it sounds like you're talking about somebody in a game of Monopoly or something. And same thing with robber barons. It just sounds it's a correct term. It's what they are, but it just sounds too old-fashioned. When I ask for what should we be calling these people on social media, people tend to tell me things like you should call them genocidal capitalists or something about hegemony and words that just make you sound, if you knock on somebody's door in Wisconsin and start talking about genocidal capitalists, it just sounds very freshman at a protest rally, I think. What I have landed on is scammer barons. It's an update on robber barons. I think it's immediately apparent what it means. This whole thing was a scam. There's not going to be millions of people being deported. They're going to deport a couple thousand people and say it was millions. Mm-hmm. The guy gets into office and immediately releases a meme coin. And I'm only vaguely aware of what a meme coin was. And it's basically like crypto. You release like X number of these and people pay what they think it's worth. So Trump released like 200 million of these things. They immediately went through the roof and his own share of them was worth like $5 billion. It has since dropped by about 80%. On the one hand, it's kind of like a teach a man to fool me and I'll be fooled for life kind of thing. Like various celebrities who put out their own meme coins, they always go way up right at the start and then immediately crash. But on the other hand, if there's somebody out there who would buy the Hawk Twa coin and think that that was a good investment, I feel like it would be morally wrong to let that person keep their money. I really do. I mean, without, I got nothing against I don't know anything near enough about the Hawk-Twa woman to have an opinion about what kind of a person she is. And it's very difficult to monetize fame. And I understand that that's an opportunity that why not take it? But Trump is actually promoting these things publicly while he's in office. Jimmy Carter had to put his peanut farm in a blind trust, and now we're all just used to him running scams like this. Elon running scam after scam after scam. That's not a Roman salute. It's not like a Hindu blessing or anything. And it would be one thing you could say it was an awkward hand gesture if this guy wasn't repeatedly engaging with, promoting, retweeting, etc., all of these anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and neo-Nazis on his platform all the time. It's just all one. They're just trying to scam you. The price of eggs is not going to go down anytime too soon. The price of your groceries will not go down. Tariffs will not make your prices any cheaper. Scammer barons, help me spread that around, everybody. So we have already got a call. We got Jim from Chicago on line 1, wants to talk about Patti's adventures in New Orleans. Jim, are you there?
Yeah, hi, Adam. Is Patti getting out of there tomorrow, or is it safe to fly out of New Orleans? Or?
The airports, I think, probably know what they're doing better than your average driver on the road down there.
I can imagine.
See, this is the problem. I lived down in Georgia for a while. The problem is, even if you know how to drive on this stuff, the other people on the road don't. And that's where it gets scary. And I would try to tell people, you just slow down and ease into your brake. That's really the whole trick. And it just does not compute with people there that you have to drive well below the speed limit in many cases. So even if you're driving safely, other people on the road are not. But the airport is a different thing. Far as I know, Patti's still getting out okay.
That's good. Because remember, Adam, they've got 6 more. It was a record. 6 more inches they've gotten in the history of New Orleans. 4 inches was the history. And in the meantime, yesterday, our criminal monarch said,
our scammer baron.
Our climate deal in Paris getting drawn out. You can't wait to get out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, the Republican Party denies science. But what I was interested in, Adam, when I voted for 50 years, I've never considered the left or the right. Those vernaculars come out of the French Revolution. That's almost 240 years ago. Those two terms come out of the French Revolution. In fact, Democrat, that word comes out of the French Revolution. But how we got into this in the last 10 or 15 years, this right and left nonsense, is maddening to me. As far as the Republican Party, they're happy to say that we're the enemy within. We're the deep state, whatever they want to claim.
Yeah.
But as far as anything that's logical, that's out the window. But I'm glad Patti will be out of there, Adam, and you have a great show. Good to hear you.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks for calling, Jim. It's like Woody Guthrie said, left wing, chicken wing, I believe. And then you do get a lot of people, especially on social media, who's like, I'm not a liberal, I'm a leftist. And I always kind of want to point, look, there's a grindcore band calling themselves punk. Go bother them instead. I think it's one of the things that I think is a sign of somebody who was raised evangelical but then became a leftist, is they still love talking about how much they hate liberals. It's something that they bring along with them that is comfortable, I think. So what is going on? So, Mike, what's going on with you?
Not a whole lot. I'm teaching at 6 different classes at 3 different schools.
Wow.
So I actually taught 2 classes today. One in Grays Lake, College of Lake County, Intro to Film, and then Oakton and Des Plaines, also Intro to Film. So my brain is kind of fried.
That would kind of fry one's brain, yeah. We'll talk about the upcoming Oscar nominations pretty soon. We've got some stuff scheduled for things like that. So all the way up in Grays Lake. Grays Lake, you ever been there? I was there once to go to a comic book shop in 1994, I think it was. So I have been. It's been about 30 years. That's like way up 94, right? It is. It's like you passed the Casey's General Store. Yeah, you're practically. You stop there for pizza anytime. I think that's kind of where Kyle Rittenhouse was from, right around there. It's like very far northwest, almost up at the Wisconsin border. Right. But a lovely town and a lovely school. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, tell us about your movie is now on many streaming platforms, your latest film.
Talking about...
Relative.
Relative,
Yeah.
yes. Well, fortunately, my fourth feature film, Relative, was picked up for distribution by Music Box Films. So they've made it available to stream on a bunch of platforms, including, of course, Amazon Prime. It'll be free for Prime members, but it's also on a bunch of other platforms. So check it out.
All right. It's a very, very enjoyable movie. I saw it a couple of times. I went up to Minneapolis with you a couple of years ago now.
That's
It's been
right.
like 2 years ago now.
2 years
when it had
ago,
that premiere
almost
ago.
to
Almost
the
to the day. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
it was late January.
Parkway Theater, really great old...
That's a fantastic
I think
theater.
it was built in the 30s, and it used to be a movie theater, and now it's kind of a multi-purpose
Yeah,
venue.
it's like they do a lot of like tribute acts play there.
Yeah, a lot of
last I
concerts.
saw. And
Well, Larry and Teresa Campbell played there.
Oh, yeah.
Right after us. So
Okay.
that was pretty cool.
That was cool. I also saw they do a lot of repertory theater. We saw Rocky Horror.
Yes, that's right. The night after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that there's been that's something I've noticed with a lot of old theaters that are doing repertory stuff and trying to stay in business. A lot of them are bringing in like rock and roll tribute acts.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a couple of callers. We're going to come on right after a break. But first of all, I got to tell you, tomorrow on Chew's Views, Richard Chew will be taking your calls and talking to Illinois State Rep Will Gazzardi, also Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation Chairman Joseph Zeke Rupnick, and LaTanya Woodson, Director of Community Health Education at Edgewater Health in Gary, Indiana. That is Chew's Views, weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. Central here on WCPT 820. We are going to take a short break, and we'll be right back here with Driving It Home.
If Cage Walls Could Talk with Jody Whittaker.
I actually learned about you and your sanctuary because of Rocky the Coyote. For those who don't know, Rocky was found as a pup. He was found by some people who thought he was a puppy, and they took him to a local animal shelter, and they realized he was a coyote. He was transported to Illinois' Cook County Forest Preserves and has since been stuck in a tiny cage for more than 5 years now. Pat has graciously and generously offered Rocky a forever home at the Wild Animal Sanctuary. So thank you so much for that.
If Cage Walls Could Talk, Saturdays at 5.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez
In your communities in Chicago.
on WCPT 820.
All right, turn your dial for a while to the voice with the smile. ADAM marks the spot, and that's a lot. All right, I'm Adam Selzer filling in for Patti Vasquez. With me is Lady B and Michael Glover-Smith, and we have got a couple of calls. Cindy from Palatine has another name for scammer barons for us. Hey, Cindy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I love that name, your name, because oligarchs is so associated, used because of Russia and Putin.
Yeah.
And robber barons, I've been doing a lot of lookup on the Vanderbilts, the Roosevelts, the Rockefellers, DuPont, Astor, all those families in the late 1800s and into the 1900s who controlled every industry. And that's only, history, memories, learning for me, but that's what it feels like right now.
Right. But it just seems like an old-fashioned term to me, though, It sounds like something out of history books.
Yeah, so schemer barons.
Scammer barons. Scammers.
Scammer, I'm sorry. Either one makes it a lot more sense. That's, because I've been, kind of do my own little bit of trolling and that kind of stuff as far as because they're everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, there's every industry, which it seems unreachable for us to be able to stand up to that kind of wealth.
That's the thing, I haven't gotten off of a lot of the platforms that I know that the owners have gone completely mental because they don't get to take away our communities. It's a bad time for us to be leaving our forms of communication and our best ways of gathering and having community. And right now, a better alternative is just not opened up yet,
Yeah. No, They definitely have us worried, and what's really sad is after they were dubbed the robber barons back in the 1900s and things. See, guess what followed that?
Yeah,
the Great Depression.
Uh-huh. That's absolutely right.
Real ominous, very ominous, but that's exactly what
right.
kind of came into play. I mean.
And some of the executive orders coming out today, like groups like the CDC can no longer issue their own communications. That's like my sister-in-law works at the CDC, got a message that they can't issue their own reports anymore. It all has to go through the Trump office. This is the key. So if there's another problem, we're only going to know what he tells us. We'll have to get our info from overseas someplace, I guess. It'll filter through.
She's a retired nursing home administrator, 45 years. She still gets CDC reports. She brought it up the other day about the latest one. But they watch and or listen to whatever means the BBC and stuff. She says, she just started realizing she wasn't going to get the information that we need.
Right. I would say the best news coverage I saw of the U.S. election came from The Guardian in the UK.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I would follow that. That's my recommendation today. If you're on your social platforms where you get news, follow The Guardian. That's okay. That's my I'm not going to say I endorse everything that they say, but that's kind of a good one. And many of us are probably thinking of what it would take to get a UK work visa at this point. Or learning the Canadian national anthem. Well, thanks a lot for calling, Cindy. Thanks a lot. Then up next, we have got Steve in Park Ridge. Steve, you've talking about a book on climate change. Steve, you there?
Yeah, I am. It's called Fire Weather. I saw this author interviewed on MSNBC. I think it was Joy Reid. In any event, we were all horrified by what happened in California last week. And she had John Valiant, Vallant, on. And he wrote a book called Fire Weather that was published a year ago. And what was interesting is I thought that he had just written it, and it was in lieu of what was going on current. But he actually is chronicling a fire in Canada from 2016 in Fort McHenry, I believe is the name.
Okay.
And in any event, there was a massive, massive fire way back then, and he's been sounding the alarm about, fires and climate change for the last 8 years. And now we've got a president that is totally ignorant and is a drill baby drill kind of guy. And everybody that cares anything about our Earth might want, and looking for a good book on climate change, Fire Weather would be my recommendation. It actually won a Pulitzer Prize finalist, National Book Award finalist. I'm looking at the cover.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for letting us know about that, Steve.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. All right. We've also got Victor in Salem, Oregon, would like to call and talk about money-grubbing billionaires, one of our favorite topics.
Yeah, exactly. I came up with a new term. Well, right. Elizabeth Warren actually did, Senator Elizabeth Warren. We should call all these billionaires that Donald Trump seems to surround himself with, especially we saw them all front and center during the inauguration, but let's call them what they really are, money-grubbing billionaires.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's unmistakable in its meaning.
Absolutely. And the saying that Donald Trump came up with during Meet the Press when he said, drill, baby, drill,
yeah.
The host should have said, hey, Donald, do you really need any more holes in your head?
Oh, terrific. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Victor. All right.
You guys all right. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thanks, Victor. We've also got Buster in Chicago who'd like to talk about social media. Buster, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
You're hearing me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yep. All right, great. I heard the lady who was commenting on her worries that we're not going to have places to organize. I just wanted to put out there so people know, and I can't say too much about it, but a bunch of cybersecurity people banded together right after the election, and we've already created a private invite-only super secure social media, and we have our own chat. Keep an eye out for us. Keep listening. we'll find you.
Okay.
We're there.
You'll find us? That does sound slightly ominous there, Buster. That you'll find us.
You just need to... Well, we'll find you or you'll find us. We're out there on those platforms that still exist, but we're being very secretive right now because we don't trust any of those platforms.
All right. Well, if you need a platform and nobody else can help and you can find them, maybe you can join with Buster. All right.
That's all I got for you guys.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Buster.
A little bit of hope for you.
All right. Excellent. So, all right. So... yes, scammer barons. That's kind of what I'm landing on. I mean, money-grubbing billionaire is exactly what's going on. The problem is most people wish that they, too, could be a billionaire. Mm-hmm. It's still, many of us think of ourselves as just temporarily embarrassed billionaires. As soon as I get things back on my feet and get my ducks in a row and everything, I'll be a billionaire myself, I'm sure. Sorry, I'm just cracking myself up here a little bit. Same thing with like Jenna. If your rant and term includes something about capitalism, people think they're gonna tell you not to buy ice cream anymore or something like that. So, but scammer barons, that's what I'm landing on. So let's see. Ice storms once again, climate change once again. Mark, are you ready for war with Canada?
Is that a thing? Is it going to happen?
I don't think. Well, it was a topic in 2 comedy movies in the 90s that I can think of, not to mention a Weird Al song, Canadian Idiot, talking about a preemptive strike on Canada. And now it's something that apparently the right has gone all in on, that we should be absorbing Canada.
I have not heard of this, so break it down.
This is one that Trump, a couple of months ago, when he met with Trudeau, said, why don't you make Canada the 51st state? And this wasn't just a joke. He's brought it up again and again. It just keeps popping up. And the various bros on social media are all in on this, possibly because they all know very well the climate change is real, and that's going to be valuable real estate before too long.
So the plan is to annex Canada against their will, either economic or regular warfare. You can guess about how popular this is in Canada. Isn't that kind of like buying Greenland? He's just saying something that's outrageous.
Right.
That he knows is not going to happen.
Probably he knows it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Canada certainly knows it's not going to happen. People of Greenland are kind of confused by the whole thing.
Okay, so what are the 2 movies where we go to war with Canada?
There was Canadian Bacon and the other, Michael Moore's fictional one.
Film.
Yes, the other is South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut,
which I never saw.
Which is, I remember seeing it. I remember I wrote a review of it at the time, thinking this is a much better movie than it has any right to be. It's an excellent musical, but it's just so timely. Everything on it seems like so based on what we're obsessed with exactly here in the summer of 1999. Some of which they got really lucky on. There was like a Jar Jar Binks joke that just hit the nail right on the head, and they'd only seen the trailer when they made the movie. But the notion of having a war with Canada was just such an absurd idea at the time that you could make multiple things about it. So I don't know. I remember on 9/11, I learned the Canadian national anthem. I just had this feeling that we were going to screw this up and I was going to have to flee. They've got a very nice national anthem up there. They're still working on it, too. There's still, sometimes they sing it, people will change God keep our land to love keep our land. I think there's some get around like in all thy son's commands. There's also daughters out there, and those beyond the binary, of course. I would say in all thy heart's command, personally. So if they're asking me.
You thought knowing the lyrics, you would be able to sing the song to prove your...
Yeah, I was like, well, in case things go south here, I might have to go north. It's like there's only one note in there that people have trouble hitting. It's easier to learn than... There's no rockets and bombs in the whole thing either.
Right.
So... all right, we are heading towards a hard break at 5:30, so I want to quick say tomorrow, live, local, and progressive, Joan Esposito will be taking the Capitol Fools writer Mark Eaton ahead of the 3 Capitol Fools shows at the North Shore Center for the Performing Arts in Skokie, February 1st and 2nd. She'll also be giving away a pair of tickets for the show. Then Joan will be joined by Julie F.K., human rights lawyer and co-author of Controlling Women, What We Must Do Now to Save Reproductive Freedom, and Joan Walsh, national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine and the co-author of Corporate BS, Exposing the Lies and Half-Truths That Protect Power, Profit, Wealth, and America. Live, local, and progressive, weekdays 2 to 5 Central on WCPT 820. Here's a break.
Stephanie Miller.
It's another true Stephanie Miller Show story, Chris LeBoy. Yeah, from with Jane in St. Charles, Illinois. It's real. Stephanie Miller fans are everywhere. We're meeting in parking lots. It happened just yesterday. I got to my car after leaving the grocery store. There was a woman loading her groceries in the car. She had a radio on to WCPT 820 Progressive Radio. I couldn't resist. I said, I think we would qualify to say that we listen to the Stephanie Miller Show. We both laughed and said, yes, we would. I love it.
Stephanie Miller, weekday mornings, 8 to 11 on WCPT 820. This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
There's so much that goes on behind closed doors.
On WCPT 820.
All right. Once again, you are listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I'm Adam Selzer, filling in for Patti today. I want to thank our sponsors once again, Minocqua Brewing and Kids Above All. So tomorrow we have got the Oscar nominations coming out. Is that right, Mike?
That's right. Exciting times.
It is. I make such a point normally of not getting invested in award shows.
Same. You're only going to get your heart broken.
Right. You're only going to get your heart broken. It drives me crazy the way people on social media treat them as proxy wars.
Right.
But then again, I have one exception, and that is if Bob Dylan might have a reason to be on this award show, if he's going to present an award or say something, I'll want to see it, which, of course, brings us to A Complete Unknown, which a lot of people are thinking could get some nominations tomorrow.
I'm thinking it's going to get more than anyone anticipates.
You think so?
I think it could get between 9 and 11.
9 and 11. Of course, A Complete Unknown is the Bob Dylan biopic that came out on Christmas Day. Mike flew to Florida for an early screening.
Yeah, I saw a press screening in Orlando. Now, they had press screenings in Chicago, but I was busy. So, yeah.
Well, you know, one of the things that that a lot of us old-time Dylan fans, I'm nowhere near the old guard, but I no longer find myself on the younger end of the spectrum of Dylan fans after years when I did. One of the things we've been hoping is that this will open the door or be a good icebreaker or a starting point for a lot of new fans. But even, I think, well before this, there's been a very interesting thing on social media where we've seen a lot more young people and a lot more young women especially offering really refreshing takes on Dylan fandom. We have got on the phone with us to talk about the movie and this whole phenomenon. We've got Britt Eisner. Britt, are you there?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Britt. Good to hear from you. I see you on social media quite a bit. I'm here with Michael Glover-Smith, who is White City Cinema on Twitter. What do you think of the movie?
Oh, my gosh. Well, you know what? I was one of the people who was very nervous going into it, but I've seen it 3 times now, and I've loved it even more every single time I've seen it.
And I am the exact same number and everything. Mike, how many times have you seen A Complete Unknown?
I've actually lost count. I would need to sit down with a pen and a piece of paper to kind of figure it out. But I want to give Britt a shout out. Britt, I loved your appearance on Definitely Dylan with you and Rebecca Slayman. You guys were amazing. It's like an hour and 40-minute conversation that the 3 of you had about that film.
Godspeed to anyone that listened to the entire thing, because it's nearly the length of the movie itself. I really appreciate that you enjoyed it. It's just such a joy for me to get to speak to anyone about Bob Dylan, but especially other women and other extremely intelligent, successful women like Rebecca and Laura. So that was definitely an honor and a lot of fun.
Now, Britt, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell our listeners a bit about yourself.
Sure, well,
how did you come? How did you come to get into Dylan?
Yeah, well, it's a strange trajectory, I guess, or maybe not that much. But growing up, I was into that kind of music because my parents are. I was sort of raised more on like Bruce Springsteen and Tom Petty and all that. But my dad is a Dylan fan, not to the level that either of you are or that I myself am now. But that's mostly what I listened to growing up. But then I sort of was not that interested in music for a while. Actually, I went to film school, and I was more focused on cinema for a really long time. But a couple of years ago, I fell deeply into the Beatles with the Get Back documentary release.
Yeah.
And then it sort of just Oh yeah,
I watched it over and over, and I tried to recreate as many of the outfits as I could.
Oh yeah,
I didn't get like the Muppet skin coat. I could not get, but others. John's rainbow shirt, I got one of those. There's a lot of them that are just like a purple shirt with a vest. That's easy enough.
Well, you got yourself a Dylan jacket as well.
Yeah,
You're sort of scamming the Levi's dupe out of Target.
Yeah, there's Levi's is putting out a replica of the trucker jacket that Timothée Chalamet wears in the movie, and for like $1,200. But there's an almost carbon copy on the clearance racks at Target for $30. You'll never outfox the fox. And I've also recreated a couple of other Dylan, like the black jacket with the zebra print. Mike and I both have that outfit. I haven't really done his like the 1980s looks yet, where it's like a pirate with the earrings and the headbands and the long coats and
the fingerless gloves.
The fingerless gloves. That period when his fashion sense just kind of packed it in and called it a day, even to me.
It's funny that you bring all of that up, because I don't know if you saw mine, Adam, but I had done around Halloween time. I did a lineup of 8 different.
I did see that. Yes,
so good.
And I did do one of those hard to handle sort of leather vest and red tank top and the leather gloves and everything.
So let's talk about Oscars. My biggest prediction is I imagine Ed Norton is going to get a nomination for his portrayal of Pete Seeger, which I think was just so spot on. Also the way that the character was written. They wrote him. Some people have complained that he seems a little too like Mr. Rogers-like, which frankly is kind of what Pete. Yeah, that's kind of what he was like. Well, there's a point in the movie when he's going to go beg Bob not to play electric, and he goes and tells him the parable of the Teaspoon Brigade, and I feel like you get the idea that this character knows this isn't going to work, but also thinks it's the right thing to do, so he goes to do it. And I think he just nailed his cadence and everything. What other awards do you guys think might be coming up? What other nominations?
I'd like to see Monica Barbaro get recognized for her performance.
Yes.
She's kind of on the cusp. I mean,
right.
We know that Chalamet's definitely getting nominated. It's going to be nominated for picture, probably adapted screenplay, and then a lot of technical awards. But yeah, Monica Barbaro and also James Mangold for director. Those are 2 that are kind of question marks.
Yeah, Monica, one thing I didn't notice until the second or third time through the movie is how well Monica nails the way that Joan Baez talks.
Yeah.
You don't really think of Joan as having a particular cadence. It's not a way of talking that you could do a parody of, but she nails it.
She sounds like her. Yeah. Her speaking.
Spot on.
Yeah, the way she says Bob.
Yeah.
Well, I think she spent time actually speaking to the actual Joan Baez, which obviously Timothy didn't, confer with Bob on any of this. But Monica and Joan, I think, spent some time together, so that probably helped influence the vocal cadence.
Yeah. Yeah, and Joan didn't ask to have her name changed or anything in the show. I don't know if there's has there been a reaction from Joan about it at all?
I don't think she's seen it, but I know her granddaughter who is on TikTok. Do you follow Jasmine Harris on TikTok? No. So, Britt, you probably saw Jasmine's TikTok video about it.
And what did she have to say?
Well, she was going to go with her grandma, but then they were too busy and they didn't go, and so she promised that she would let us know Joan's reaction when they did go. But I don't think they've gone.
Yeah,
yet.
I would imagine for Joan that would be daunting. Honestly, I mean, to see a movie that you're in for anybody feels like it would be daunting to me.
I could really picture her just sitting there watching it and cracking up through the entire thing, to be honest.
I mean, she's so far removed
the kind of attitude she has towards Bob now.
Yeah, her attitude these days, you know what, we were in our 20s.
Yeah. I mean, I think the film offers a very flattering portrayal of Joan Baez. The very first time she appears, it's the most sort of flattering, introduction. It's this kind of low-angle shot where the camera's kind of on her guitar from behind as she's walking into Gertie's Folk City.
Yeah, I know there's been some people complaining she didn't play at Gertie's Folk City. Well, not that we know of, but she was opening for Flatt and Scruggs in early '61, so it's close enough.
Who cares?
And she's portrayed as a star.
She looks like a badass. Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah,
she looks cooler in that scene than Bob does at maybe any point in the movie.
Right. Exactly.
And it looks like she's handling fame so well, too. I mean, she's got people, grabbing at her, but she just kind of walks by.
Yeah. Albert, please leave your phone.
So, it's for those who haven't seen it out there, I found it a very enjoyable movie. If you like rock biopics, if you're the kind of person who can't stand biopics and isn't going to see it, should we have a party? Should we tell everyone? I've definitely seen a lot of that reaction. But if you enjoy rock biopics, you're going to enjoy this one. I think it's, we know going into a movie that it's not going to be 100% accurate. But I think that it gets things poetically accurate, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. Well, I said they swung so hard for the fences with the inaccuracies that it threw it completely out the window. It made it not matter at all if something was just a tiny bit wrong. They just go for it spiritually rather than factually.
Right. Yeah, they never made any pretense of trying to do things factually. There was even the anecdote that Mangold says that Bob was consulting with him on the script and insisted that something be in there. We don't know what yet. Insisted that some scene be inserted that definitely did not happen. And he said, well, Bob, what are people going to think? And Bob said, what do you care what people think? Which is just such a Bob kind of reaction to this sort of thing. And I suspect Bob had more involvement on this movie than people are guessing so far, or that has been made public.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I would agree on that. I know, because then people are trying to guess what is the scene, that he put in, or the inaccurate line that he put in, or something. And there's just hundreds of different guesses, which just shows you how many, how many things it reasonably could have been.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think all three of us would be in the boat that we'd have reason to be skeptical of the movie going in. This could cause some damage. I mean, what if they portray him to be even more an insufferable jerk than he could? He certainly could be in the early 60s.
Yeah.
And I don't think it showed quite how much pressure he was under by 65, but I also think that got a lot worse after the events of the movie. And that will mess with anybody's head when you have that many people jumping on you. And a lot of people, this was before they had things like media training back then, too. And I think it would go to anybody's head. I think it would mess with anybody's head. I don't know how anybody gets out of that with their mental health intact. I'm really trying hard not to talk about Chapel Rowan right now.
Oh, geez. I think that if anyone who wasn't familiar with the story beforehand watched the movie and thought he was just a massive uncalled for asshole, which I don't think he comes across as that in it at all, if they went and watched Don't Look Back right after that, I actually think you would get a little bit more of an understanding, because the interviews he's subjected to in that movie are difficult to watch sometimes. Right. I'm of the opinion that he doesn't come off like that much of a jerk in Don't Look Back. I know some people have a different take on it, I guess.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I show Don't Look Back in my intro to film classes.
For those just listening in, Don't Look Back is the documentary about Dylan on tour in May of 1965.
Yes, his last tour as a solo folk music performer.
Right, and also the first mainstream movie to include the F-bomb.
That's right.
Which we still can't say on the radio.
But my students, a lot of them think he's a jerk for the way he talks to the press. And I have to kind of explain the context to them, because today, if a pop star is interviewed, it's by someone who is going to be extremely sympathetic to them.
Yeah.
Right? I have to kind of explain to my students, look, there were no, music journalism was not a thing.
Yeah.
The guy who interviews Dylan for Time Magazine in Don't Look Back, Horace Judson, he was a science writer.
Yeah.
He was an American writer who was stationed in London, and he was sent to...
Right. They would be sent to these pop stars to attack.
Right. Or just to ask questions.
Yeah.
But he didn't know who Dylan was. He hadn't really heard his music. He's just a guy wearing a tie who was, given this, quota of, material he was supposed to send back to the office in New York. And so I think Dylan kind of was basically throwing a monkey wrench into the whole interview process by refusing to allow it to happen the way that this guy wanted it to.
Yeah, and I think you see even more so when he gets just absurd with his answers in later. And like in 66, he would just be completely absurd with his answers.
Right.
Which almost became a parody. And you can watch, they didn't show as much as what I was hoped in the new Beatles 1964 documentary, their press conference at JFK when they first landed. You read the transcript of it, those interviewers, the press, all came out for blood. They were there specifically to make fun of these mop tops, and the Beatles just charmed every single one of them in the end. It was one of the most effective charm offensives, I think, that has ever taken place. And they came in, they showed that they were in on the joke, they laughed at themselves, they laughed at the press, they gave it right back to them pretty well. Well, there's a noise I haven't heard in a while. The noise of a button being pushed on a landline phone. Mike just leaned his cell phone up against the landline phone. It's kind of a clash of two cultures going on right here. All right, so moving on. It looks like we have got to go on a break. So, Britt, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And Britt, good luck raising the money to come see Bob Dylan.
Come in the Midwest.
Get
please,
that
if
bag.
we can get a community fund going.
We'll play a Live Aid concert. So, all right, thanks a lot. We are going on break. Britt, thanks for calling in. We'll be right back here with more of Driving It Home.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
All right, once again, turn your dial for a while to the voice with a smile. I'm going to get this right. I'm going to have to just practice and practice. We've got some new podcasts coming up. Just a reminder that Driving It Home has 2 new podcasts, Driving It Home full episodes and Driving It Home featured interviews. You can subscribe to one or both. The podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Amazon. Just search for Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez or get the links on the Driving It Home show page by visiting heartlandsignal.com and clicking on Patty's picture. YouTube. Mike, you ever watch that? You ever see that website, YouTube?
I've seen it, yes.
Yeah, they've got like all kinds of videos and stuff. You can find all kinds of like crazy things. Well, speaking of Oscar nominations, I just realized, listening to an audiobook the other day on a long drive, that Pat Morita was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for The Karate Kid.
Not surprising.
Yeah, not surprising. It's not that surprising, but usually you don't think of a movie like that as being the kind of thing that win awards. But you watch it now, and you can see why it holds up better than a lot of other movies of the era, and I think part of it is just the relationship between Daniel and his mom. His mom seems so realistic as a character.
Yeah, well, that film was directed by John Avildsen, who made Rocky, which, of course, won the Best Picture Oscar, and it's basically the same formula.
Yeah, and, something that came up in the audiobook is when they were first doing auditions, the producers were saying, under no circumstances am I even going to look at Pat Morita for that part. That guy's a Borscht Belt hack. I used to book him in the Catskills under the name The Hip Nip. And if you look on YouTube, there are clips of him doing stand-up about 20 years before Karate Kid, not even 20 years, as the Hip Nip. And it's kind of shocking because I don't think there's one joke he tells that I would repeat on the air anymore. It's just shockingly dated racial humor at the time. But at the same time, I will admit that I laughed because the delivery was just so good.
Yeah.
It was just so perfectly done that it almost didn't matter what he was saying. You were probably going to laugh at it.
Well, at what point, Adam, did you realize that the Japanese accent he uses in The Karate Kid is not his normal speaking voice?
I didn't know that until fairly recently. That's the only thing I'd ever really seen him in. I know he did Happy Days and stuff, but I didn't see too much of that.
Right. And I think some people find that a little bit problematic.
Yeah, now I mean, he was in an internment camp as a little kid, and he's playing much older than he is in Karate Kid. Kid.
Right.
And that's part of the Miyagi's backstory that they bring up. And I didn't know that was the first mainstream movie ever to talk about Japanese internment camps.
Wow, I did not know that.
I did not know that either. That's what Ralph Macchio says anyway in his audiobook.
Well, he should know.
He would know, yeah. He's had to live this character till the end of time, as it turns out. Cobra Kai, the Karate Kid soap opera series on Netflix, is going to be winding up its run soon, and then there's going to be another big screen Karate Kid
with Ralph Macchio.
With Ralph Macchio taking the reins back. They never mentioned the Hilary Swank one,
right?
In which, frankly, Miyagi's English skills seem to take a real nosedive.
I hear they tried to get Hilary Swank for Cobra Kai.
I'm sure they did.
She's too big.
Yeah,
she's a two-time Oscar winner.
Right. I mean, they've gotten every minor character who ever shows up in the Karate Kid 1 through 3 makes some kind of an appearance there. The shout-outs honestly got a little bit over the top. Well, in particular to me, it was like fairly early in the run in like the second season when I don't think it had quite devolved to an over-the-top soap opera. They actually show the guy who shouts, "Put him in a body bag, Johnny," being put in a body bag.
Oh, wow.
That was the one, like, okay. Well, I know from a friend, my brother is friends with one of the producers and creators. He said, no, this has always been intended to be a completely over-the-top, ridiculous soap opera.
Wow.
Like, season 1, I don't think they had quite gotten that far, but Patti, I know, is a big fan as well. She was a big Karate Kid fan. Had a big crush on Ralph Macchio when the movie was new. And I only saw part 2 in the theaters as a kid. I was a little young for part 1.
I saw both parts 1 and 2 in the theater.
Yeah.
And, of course, the soundtrack to Karate Kid 2 was
Peter Cetera. Yeah. I knew every word to that song.
The Glory of Love.
The Glory of Love, yeah. Like a knight in shining armor from a long time ago. So that's one of the things that stuck with us. I mean, I was so glad to see that come back. Usually Lego sequels I don't really expect much of.
Yeah,
and in this case, at least they're in on the joke and having fun with it, I think. And it's gone on long enough and they've put enough care into it that it doesn't just seem like, well, people have been bugging us for a sequel forever, so let's do it.
You're talking about Cobra Kai?
About Cobra Kai,
I actually have not seen it, so I can't comment on the quality.
Yeah, well, quality is not necessarily the word. This is a show where they have karate riots breaking out pretty much everywhere at every time. But there's always kind of a wink to it that you know that they're just having a good time with it. And, my brother and I played Daniel versus Johnny more than we played Star Wars.
Right.
So to be able to see more of these characters and seeing them have fun again, it's just nice to see. So what else is going on in the news? So, we should we'll cover this a bit more, but another Oscar contender, Mike, you saw The Brutalist.
I did.
And?
I'm not a fan.
Not a fan.
I'm not a fan. This is a movie that is obviously well made. The acting is, for the most part, very good. But it's the kind of film that just insists on its own importance. And the best thing I heard about it, somebody on Letterboxd said the director of the film, Brady Corbet, didn't want to make a great film. He wanted to be seen as a great director. So the film has all of these kind of what I would consider superficial signposts of great art. It's 3.5 hours long.
Oh, geez.
There's an intermission built into the film, and there's it's about the Holocaust and it's about the immigrant experience, and there's a rape scene in it, and yet I don't think it really has that much to say aside from being a kind of simplistic anti-capitalist allegory. That's my nutshell review.
Did you find yourself appreciating brutalist architecture more?
No, and here's why. The film is not about architecture.
Oh, no.
Yes, there's very little architecture in the movie. We just have to kind of accept that this character is a genius architect, but we don't really see him drawing up plans, and there's not a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of building in the film.
Interesting.
Yes.
Brutalism, for those who aren't too familiar with it, comes from brute meaning raw. And you think of parking garages from the 60s, college campus buildings from the 60s, big hulking government slabs of cement all over Washington, D.C., the River City here in Chicago, the big curving one that looks like something out of Logan's Run. That is the style of brutalism, very big in the 60s and 70s and up a little bit in the 80s. It's been the butt of every architecture joke for the last generation or so, but all of a sudden, the last couple of years, it has been socially acceptable to unironically claim that you love brutalism again.
Everything.
I never thought that one would come back as leg warmers and members-only jackets.
And the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
The Cobra Kai.
Yeah, but I like the Karate Kid Part 1 and 2 much better than I like brutalism. But, at this point, though, still, it's just kind of refreshing. It's just such a difference from all of the glass that we're putting up now. But, of course, that ties into Trump's new executive orders that we'll get back to later. Listening live, you can listen live weekdays from 2 to 5 at 8:20 a.m. on TuneIn from heartlandsignal.com, or tell Alexa to play WCPT from TuneIn. We are going to go on a break in about 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
All right. Once again, you are listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. Only Patti is down escaping from the Chicago cold in New Orleans, which is getting record cold. I'm Adam Selzer filling in. I've got Michael Glover-Smith with me here today, local filmmaker, professor, author, and once again, thanks Minocqua Booing, Kids Above All, and Heartland Signal. If you haven't already, you can follow Heartland Signal on X, Facebook, TikTok so far, Instagram, and Threads at Heartland Signal, all one word, and be sure to check heartlandsignal.com for daily updates. So also got to say a hi to Minnesota, KTNF AM 950 and WCPT 820 on the Heartland Signal. Welcome to all of the listeners from Minnesota popping in now. I was just in Minnesota this weekend. From cold in Minnesota. And I was up in Minneapolis for the weekend, but my kid asked while I was there, can we go see the twine ball? And that popped into my head immediately. Let's see where that is. And I first looked up, it was about an 80-minute drive away. I'm like, man, it's like an hour and a half to get to the ball of twine, and it's going to be like -10 outside. But we both knew the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota from the Weird Al song of the same name. This song that came out about I was about 9-10 years old when it came out, about this classic Americana road trip to see a giant ball of twine somewhere in the state of Minnesota underneath a makeshift pagoda. He comes up with a lot of interesting rhymes from Minnesota in that song, and really it's one of Weird Al's best songs. I think it might be his very best song. It's not specifically a parody of anything. It's just this great Americana strange road trip, and years later I found out there really is a biggest ball of twine in Minnesota, in the town of Darwin. And after initially thinking, that's quite a long drive, I finally turned and said, let's do it. We had the morning free. What else could there be to do but go to see the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota? So, we got a sign that said twine ball or bust, and drove through towns where they were advertising Knights of Columbus pancake jamborees, chili suppers honoring Chief Tatty, a lot of Dollar General towns, to this little town of 300 people where I swear that twine ball must be employing everybody. From the 50s to the 70s, a guy named Francis Johnson created this enormous ball of twine, like larger than a person. You're so overwhelmed by its sheer immensity that you have to pop yourself a beer and fall on your knees saying, kids, this here's what America is all about. And, having been there, there's a question in the song, what was going through his mind? Who was he trying to impress? And having been to Darwin, it's like, there just wasn't anything else to do.
So it was worth it.
It was absolutely worth it. It's right next to the Twine Ball Inn. There's actual sign, the Twine Ball Country nearby. It being 20 below and Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, there was nobody there at the gift shop. But there is a gift shop and a whole museum about the thing. It's just a little makeshift pagoda across the street from the local park. And it was one of those little glorious road trips. I enjoyed it tremendously. Now, we've got Eduardo, who's been waiting on the line to talk about who should be the next James Bond. Obviously, it's Weird Al. But Eduardo down in Tampa, how you doing?
Yeah, how's it going? Well, no snow, but they did get some northern Florida, like Pensacola area, Tallahassee.
Oh, yeah.
But no snow. 42 degrees.
That's close enough. You could get some snow at 42 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah, so I am looking forward to, before I get into James Bond, I am looking forward to the new Karate Kid. I was not going to watch it, but I renewed my interest because Ralph Macchio was going to be in it. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, they're combining the two mythos. They're doing they're combining the Jackie Chan one of bringing Ralph Macchio into that. So making a whole Karate Kid cinematic universe. Everything's got to be a cinematic universe now. The brutalist cinematic universe. So let's talk James Bond.
That would be a great segment for you guys to open up if you guys are going to be on later in the week or another time. What TV show? I've already got like a couple. What TV show we can bring back? I don't know. There's a bunch of them. I would definitely bring back a show like there's a couple of them I can think of. Airwolf. I would bring that. Stingray. There was a guy with a 1968 Stingray. I like that TV show.
Okay.
Yeah.
King of the Hill's about to come back.
Stratham. Yeah, Jason Stratham would be good for that because he's Mr. Chop Suey. So,
all right,
he knows all the right moves. But yeah, what do you guys think about that? And how do you think the story should evolve during these modern times with the new James Bond? How do you see that?
I don't know. I feel like I can get most of the gadgets that he used in the 60s. I can get on my phone now. The gadget. It's harder to impress people with gadgets nowadays. You know. But it all just kind of comes down to style, which of course James Bond has, beyond. I thought for years that casinos were really classy because of James Bond movies. They always come off as very classy in Bond, like Diamonds Are Forever. And then I went to an actual casino. It's like the carpet looks like Crunchberry diarrhea. No one here seems to have bathed in a very long time because they've been down here playing these slot machines for days on end. And in those days, you could still smoke in them, so it was really nasty.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in.
Okay, jump in, please.
What casinos are you going to? Are you talking about Merrillville, Indiana? Because I don't think James Bond actually went
James
there.
Bond never went to Altoona, Iowa. What kind of warlord would be setting up in Altoona? Talk about your underachieving terrorists.
I think Bond is in where Monaco and places like that.
Right. Okay. I don't know what they're like in Monaco, but I bet they're the same as the ones in Altoona, Iowa. Honestly. So Eduardo, who should be the next?
Not the same locations as before. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Pick one. Greenland, Papua New Guinea, some unknown island, something new that we haven't seen. Because then we'll say, hey, how about going over there? Take our lady there, or girlfriend, whatever, or boyfriend.
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine had a point a while ago when a last Bond movie came out. He said, Bond movies don't necessarily, it's not about whether the whole movie is good. It's whether it's good for 10 minutes at a time on TBS or on TNT when you're flipping channels late at night. But yeah, so I believe, Eduardo, did you say you wanted to talk about who should be the next James Bond?
Right. Any ideas, or have you heard any rumors?
Timothy Chalamet.
James Bond cannot be American. He's got
to be British.
He's got to have an accent. Yeah,
agree. He's got to be. He could be Scottish.
Yeah.
He could.
Right.
So who should it be? I've never really had a dog in the fight on this one.
I forget his name, but Idris Elba. Did I say that name right?
Yeah, Idris Elba has come up.
Yeah.
He's been coming up for so long that I wonder if he's too old for it now.
Right.
He already is.
Yeah.
What about Josh O'Connor?
I'm drawing a blank, man.
So
I don't follow. I'm so bad about following actors.
Josh O'Connor is a very good youngish British actor. He was in Challengers.
Okay.
Zendaya. He's one of the two leads.
Oh, okay. One of those two guys.
He's also in an Italian film called La Chimera, where he's very good. He wears a white suit in that film that gets progressively dirtier as the film goes on. He would be good.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine.
Right.
I would imagine they'll pick somebody relatively unknown, but it's just a matter of whether they got that panache.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, let's stay tuned. All right, guys. Great show. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot, Eduardo.
Okay. Have a good evening.
All right. If you want to call us in, call 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278. You want to just call, want to talk to us about the scammer barons who are all over the place. Speaking of, Mike, one thing about the Brutalist that I haven't followed too closely, just a little bit, the controversy about the use of AI in the filmmaking. Can you tell us what that's all about?
Yeah, so the filmmakers used AI with regards to both image and sound. Mm-hmm. And now, first of all, I want to say I was negative on this movie before the AI story broke.
Right.
So, it's not like I'm jumping on a bandwagon, but my philosophy is anti-AI. Mm. I've never used ChatGPT. I never will. I won't do it because I think it's funny. As a teacher, it's plagiarism is now rampant.
It feels like it feels like you could spot the AI papers without too much trouble.
You can. It depends on how much effort the students put into
rewriting and editing
it. Yeah, because you can just because you can take the ChatGPT prompt and you can run that through a plagiarism checker, and then you can reword the problematic. It just seems
like a lot of effort,
You know what? Students will put so much time and effort into cheating, you wouldn't even believe it. So I'm anti-AI, and so the AI, here's how it was used in the movie. Adrian Brody is speaking with a Hungarian accent, as is Felicity Jones, who plays his wife. Now, they're saying the Hungarian accent is the most difficult accent to master in the world. So there's one scene where he speaks in Hungarian. It's like voiceover of a letter he's writing, and it's a long letter. Mm-hmm. And because he did not sound authentic, they used AI to tweak his speaking voice to make the accent sound better.
All right.
And they did the same thing for the actress who played
that seems like, did they really do the acting?
Right, exactly. I mean, the accent is a huge part of the performance.
Right. Now, generally, I don't want to get involved in too many debates on AI because I feel like we can't define its parameters properly.
Right.
I mean, a lot of things that we would have just called technology 10 years ago, or, there's an extent to which they're throwing around the term AI for stuff that isn't really artificial intelligence any more than a spell checker was.
Right.
And a lot of it is just like the way we would have used cyber in the 90s for everything, or radio in the 20s just meant high tech, or Omatic in the 1950s.
Right.
And so, just using color correction software, the same one you used in the 90s, you could use today and call it AI. But when we're actually changing somebody's performance, more so than just fixing the lighting or using AI to remove something from the background.
Yeah.
And it's similar. It seems even more so than auto-tune.
Yeah, it's worse.
You can use auto-tune in singing just as an effect, like Cher, Do You Believe in Life After Love? You can use it almost like as a whole different instrument.
Yeah.
But when you hear that people are using it just to fix a note, it feels like they're cheating somehow.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then the other thing is, generative AI is also a plagiarism machine.
Right. It's just spouting stuff back out.
Right. Based on what's already out there.
Right.
It's kind of synthesizing everything.
Mm.
And the other way that it used AI is there are some drawings that you see of brutalist architecture. Right. And so they had AI come up with sketches for new brutalist buildings.
Yeah.
And then they hired a real artist to redraw the sketches that AI did to make it more human. But, they still saved a lot of time and money by having AI be the foundation.
All right, we got to take a quick break right here. I've got a little bit over. We'll be right back on this in a second.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
All right, you've got Driving It Home on WCPT. I'm Adam Selzer filling in for Patti Vasquez. You may know that you can live stream WCPT anytime on TuneIn.com or on the TuneIn app, but we're excited to announce that it's now available commercial-free. Just upgrade to TuneIn Premium by searching Premium or telling your device, Alexa, sign up for TuneIn. Like, we got to make sure my watch didn't say that. When you have TuneIn Premium and I go to a commercial break, you'll hear recent audio from one of the great shows on the station, like Choose Views, The Stephanie Miller Show, The Tom Hartman Program, Joan Esposito, Live, Local, and Progressive, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and yes, Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. Now, something I enjoy doing when I'm doing live streams now and then is to give an Alexa command and see how many viewers it messes with. If you got the radio on right now and I were to if I were to say that name and then say turn off the living room, who knows what it might do to the people listening at home. That actually does work. People have tried this. So welcome back. I'm Adam Selzer filling in for Patti Vasquez, who is escaping the Chicago winter by going to New Orleans, where they're having their worst snowstorm ever. With me is Michael Glover-Smith, local filmmaker and film history professor, among other things. So we've been talking about the use of AI in movies and generative AI, and I've been experimenting a bit just to see what it can do, just so I feel like I'm more familiar with it, and it's been honestly kind of comforting. As I tried an AI personal assistant a while ago, and honestly, they were pretty fun to talk to. It's just the same thing as Ask Jeeves, really. It's just you ask it to Google something for you, or ask you, like, what restaurants are near the Woody Guthrie Center that we can go to, and as a personal assistant, absolutely terrible. It would give me these recommendations for places that have been closed for years. There's one thing, there are a couple of things you find that I found that it was fun to play with. It was fun to just talk and say, I'm at the airport, entertain me. And it would say, okay, let's play Beatles trivia. And that's kind of fun, but many of their answers were not correct. So one thing AI can't do is fact check.
Right.
There's nothing AI can do to tell you whether something is true or not. They can't weigh things.
That's how I ended up busting a lot of students.
Yeah.
I started to realize that students were writing about things that happened in films that they saw in class that did not actually happen.
Yeah.
So, they're describing a scene in Citizen Kane, and they'll say, the scene where Charles Foster Kane, threw the wine glass into the fireplace.
Who threw the glass?
That doesn't happen in
I just want to know who threw it.
Yeah, I don't care who threw it. I just want to know who threw it. Well, it doesn't happen. So, So what AI does is it guesses what it doesn't know to kind of fill in the blanks.
Right. Well, it just kind of notices two things popping up together.
Yeah.
Like one of them, I told the assistant, hey, I'm doing a thing about Professor Breasted, who studied Egyptology at the University of Chicago, and they said, "Oh, you should talk about his house in the Hutchinson Historic District." Like, he had one.
Yeah.
And looked what up. No, he was friends with a guy named Charles Hutchinson.
Yeah.
I did not find anything about him having a house, and the AI wouldn't tell me where they got that or what the source was or anything. So the fact checking is not good, and I don't know if it ever will be. And another thing that I'm finding is it can't intentionally be funny.
Right.
Unintentionally, it's kind of like talking to Johnny Five from Short Circuit or Balky Bartakamas from Perfect Strangers. There's definitely like some fish out of water stuff will come up that I find very amusing, but that's not the same as being actively funny.
Right.
And that's been fairly comforting for me to see the limits of what AI can really do.
Right. Well, if it could be truly funny, then it would be human. Right?
Yeah. It's like, and then you have to get to the whole question of at what point does it become a living thing.
Right.
And you talk to these things for a few minutes, it's going to be fun to talk to, but you'll figure out that they're not human really very quickly. And I can definitely see the ones that I've tried are definitely seem more convincing than a lot of, like, if you go to like your cable company and they want you to talk to their AI bot first. And it's always just terrible. They never actually have the answers to the questions. But It's just a lot of it is just kind of like playing Zork with a larger language base. Those like text-based, dungeon-based adventures that you played on computers in the early 80s.
Right.
And it was programmed. Like if you said jump, it would say, okay, good. Now you can go to the second grade. And it was programmed with certain things like that, but not too much. Half the time it would say, I do not understand that question. Or it would only be programmed with 3 or 4 things, or I remember Apple II Jeopardy, the game show. My first few times through, I was 7 years old, so I didn't get anything. But that floppy disk could only hold like 5 games worth of questions. So pretty soon I knew I had everything memorized.
Right.
But the way that the other characters answered was basically, well, I guarantee you if that came out now, they would put AI on the box for the exact same thing.
Well, AI is only going to get better, quote unquote, as time goes by. And, I think we should just turn our backs on it. It's okay. A lot of people have this attitude of, oh, well, it's here to stay. We might as well figure out how to use it in an ethical way. And my attitude is it's okay to just ignore it. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially if you're an artist. I mean, right. Adam, you're going to use AI as a personal assistant. You're not going to use it to help you write a book.
No. It's
cheating.
It's cheating, and it's not good enough at it.
All right.
And well, if you just want to follow the tropes and stick to the formula, I think it can do that up to a point.
Yeah.
Up to a point. And honestly, I get in trouble for this, but the best advice I can give to young authors is follow the trends and stick to the formula. If you get to build enough of a name for yourself, then you can break the rules and do something and it'll still be marketable. But I just saw a guy give a speech saying, don't worry about the tropes, don't worry about the formula, your book will find its audience. No, it won't. I'm 25 books in and deeply cynical about the whole enterprise at this point. But that's just me. That's just me working out my demons in control. But now, Instagram just recently tried to have openly AI characters that were going to come and bring the sass. And it was a spectacular failure.
Oh, yeah.
But those are the ones that they advertise. There's also probably any number of AI bots out there, like reply bots, that'll just say, I disagree, and try to take up your time on the various... You can usually spot them because they'll have, like, no original posts of their own, no actual followers or anything.
Yeah.
They just kind of pop in to say, I disagree. It's just block.
I'm assuming this is also being used for porn, right? This has got to revolutionize porn.
I assume so, yes.
There have to be porn bots.
My friend told me. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen, too. Yeah. They've been making movies and writing books about that for years now. Right. I remember books about, like, the AI porn bots in the 1990s.
Right.
Right around the time when in the future they'd have everybody living at the mall. Which every time I see a new mixed-use development like that one down on Roosevelt, the Roosevelt collection with a movie theater, mall shops, and apartments. Yes, the future is now.
I was just at the Landmark last night on Clark Street. You ever been in that mall?
Is that the one that used to be...
It's Clark and Diversey.
Yeah, Clark and Diversey, that very cool old building.
Yeah, and you go inside, and it is a dead shopping mall, and with a movie theater on the 4th floor.
Right.
But, malls are kind of a relic of the past, aren't they?
They really are. There's the new giant one that opened in New Jersey.
Oh, I didn't
in
hear
East
about
Rutherford. It's a whole other topic. We'll have to get to it after the break that is coming up. But I took a group of kids there last year, and it's just fascinating. Usually, if you go back to your hometown mall, it's always a depressing experience.
Yeah.
Especially mine. Mine used to have a statue of a naked guy with angel wings riding a tricycle. We called him the Naked Trike Angel of Merle Hay Mall. It was a big research project of mine trying to figure out what became of that. It disappeared from the mall about 25 years ago. Finally found it was in a woman's backyard.
Wow.
She had bought it from the mall for an undisclosed sum, but she said it would cost much less than she spent having him moved to her place. But it is now, she eventually got it to the city of Johnston, a Des Moines suburb. It is now part of their city hall.
Wow.
But I tracked it down. I found the sculptor who lives out in Hawaii now, and wrote an article about it for DSM, which is like their version of Chicago Magazine. And it became their most popular article ever.
Wow.
When I wrote it. The Naked Trike Angel touched a lot of hearts. It really did.
Good work, detective.
It's nice to research something where nobody gets serial killed every now and then, So, all right, I'm Adam Selzer filling in for Patti Vasquez on Driving It Home WCPT. We have got a break right now at 6:30, and we will be right back.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
All right. If you listen to WCPT on TuneIn and want to hear more of the audio you love, upgraded TuneIn Premium to listen commercial-free and score hours more of the content you love without the ads. Search Premium or tell your device, Alexa, sign up for TuneIn to upgrade today and start listening to WCPT and much more, all commercial-free. You've got Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I'm Adam Selzer, filling in for Patti, who is escaping the Chicago cold by going someplace that's just as bad this week. With me is Lady B and Michael Glover-Smith, and we were just talking about dead malls. There was a comedian a while ago, I think it was David Sedaris, talking about the signs of mall cancer. Like if there's an actually home furniture in your mall, it's dying. If there's a Macy's men shop in the mall, I would say if there's a trampoline emporium going on. But that's one thing. You can't get a trampoline emporium on Amazon. You probably can get all the materials for one, but you can't just go to that. That's one thing you can't go to digitally.
Right.
Now and then I do go to a mall that still seems like it's thriving. Like Old Orchard is still getting a crowd. The Oculus Mall in New York is still getting a crowd. A lot of the ones that are run by Westfield, really. But there's another one that opened in East Rutherford. It's called the American Dream Mall. It's a mall / multiple theme parks and like an 8-story Angry Birds miniature golf course. It was on the books for years and years, since back when that seemed like a good investment.
Right.
And it opened just a couple of years ago, and I think still isn't totally complete, but I had a school group that I was taking around New York last year, and we came to a point we were supposed to go to Chinatown, but a torrential rainstorm was coming. So I just put my heads together. The bus driver and I had been taking cracks at the American Dream Mall the whole time. We had never been. We didn't know anybody who had ever been. And this is a place that they initially expected something in the realm of 200,000 visitors a day.
Wow.
Especially, at least on weekends, I hope. So we decided, well, we've got to kill some time before it's time to go to the hotel. Why don't we take the kids to the American Dream Mall? And on the way, I talked to the kids about 90s mall culture. I bet on these school trips back in those days, there was a mall on every itinerary. Mm-hmm. In those days, there was nothing more exciting than going to a different mall. Remember that?
I do.
When malls really were the downtown, is where you did most of the interesting shopping that wasn't just what you could get at Target or Walmart.
Yeah.
And so I think a mall probably came up every time, and now it almost never does.
No.
And if it does, it's strictly just because we need something to fill time. So we went out to the American Dream Mall, which was, talked about 90s mall culture. That, they knew the mall before the internet was the one place to be because that's in a Taylor Swift song. But we got there, we couldn't find the entrance to it, so we were like roaming around the parking lot trying to find our way inside of the American Dream Mall. Like, kids, take note of this. You're wandering around the New Jersey parking lot trying to find your way into the American Dream. Your life will never be more like a Springsteen song than it is right now, right at this second. And we found it. We ended up, the teachers and I all went and had dinner, then played a round of not Angry Birds miniature golf, but the other, like, cosmic miniature golf course. And the place, you could have run Olympic events in the halls. There were so few people around there. But the restaurants were all functioning, and so we had a good meal and ran around. The kids had a great time. But it was really a surreal experience to be at something this huge that was already this empty.
Right. That's so new.
Yeah, that's like, how did this still get built?
I think things that are big are no longer popular.
Yeah.
Like now things that are
nobody
big
goes there
tacky.
anymore. It's too popular.
Yeah. Or things that are like physically large.
Yeah.
Like when I think of malls, I also think of stretch limos.
Yeah.
In the 20th century, a limousine was cool. And now you don't really see them around anymore.
Yeah.
Or it seems kind of sad if you see one.
It's like, 50 prom kids at $4 each. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's right. We have had more and more really tall buildings getting built now. That's kind of made a comeback.
Right, that's
after
true.
years when it wasn't happening. The Sears has finally been surpassed as the highest occupied floor in the United States. I mean, there were a couple, like the New World Trade Center it's only taller than the Sears if you count the spire.
Oh, yeah.
It's a weird quirk in architecture rules that you count the spires but not the antennas.
Okay.
And I've yet to hear anybody make a coherent claim for why that should be. I know the architect didn't plan the antenna, but what if they did?
Yeah.
What if they write a note and saying, yes, I thought there would be an antenna on this and plan for it? But there's the Central Park Tower in New York is topped out at the higher occupied floor than the Sears, but it was designed by Adrian Smith, who also did the Burj Khalifa and also the Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia that might eventually actually get built. It's been started, and that would top out at 3,000 feet.
Wow.
But all three of those, Central Park Tower, Burj Khalifa, and Jeddah Tower, all by Chicago architect Adrian Smith, so we still win. Which kind of brings us to one of the executive orders signed in a couple of days was the Beautiful Architecture Act, which means that all government buildings should be built in, like, a classical style.
Oh, I did not hear that.
Like bringing back, everything should look like a civic building, lots of columns and stuff, which is really... Trump has a thing against glass towers and brutalism, I guess.
Yeah.
And ironically, though, his buildings are always big glass towers.
Right.
Something like school groups will ask me sometimes, the parents will ask me, so Trump Tower's had a pretty good building. It's like, yeah, that would be the coolest building in town if this were Omaha. And it was 1982.
So him wanting to bring back classical architecture, that's kind of like him appointing John Voight and Mel Gibson as his Hollywood ambassadors.
Yeah, it was actually an order that he put out towards the end of his last term that everybody just brushed under the rug, and I don't think anybody paid that much attention to anyway. But it's just something like, the reason we got Mies van der Rohe, the architect in Chicago, is that as Hitler decided he wanted architecture to look more German, not this modern stuff.
Right.
It's a symptom of authoritarians and fascists. They want their architecture to be big and imposing.
Right.
Him trying to control architecture is one of those things that's only going to go so far. Right. I think it's like, who's really going to call it the Gulf of America?
Yeah, nobody.
Now, did anybody really vote for that? Is that really what you wanted? No, this is not something he really campaigned on. It's just something that he came in on because it was a scam. These are scammer barons getting back to where we were to begin with. Now, also, we've been worrying in Chicago that it's going to be one of the first places where we have a lot of immigration raids. Are you aware of the immigration status of any of your neighbors, Mike?
No, I'm not.
I mean, I
never think about it.
Yeah, it never really occurs to me. I mean, I live in West Rogers Park. I think it's the most diverse tract of the census. It's known as an area for a very diverse. I couldn't even tell you what one of the top 2 or 3 ethnicities in my neighborhood is.
Right. Yeah.
You walk around in Warren Park and you'll see like 8 different sports being played, 3 of which you don't even recognize.
Right.
And it's fascinating. It's a very cool area to live in. I'm sure there are people in the neighborhood who aren't documented. I have no idea. If they had told me, I would assume that they trusted me enough with that information that, I'm not INS. It's none of my business. If somebody knocks on my door and asks me to turn in my neighbors, I got nothing for them to begin with.
Right.
Nor would I help.
It'll be interesting to see if it happens.
Yeah, it's everybody's kind of racing. They said the Little Village, also known as Little Mexico in Chicago on 26th Street, is kind of a ghost town right now. But then again, it's 20 below outside, so why wouldn't it be? It's very difficult, though. They say, well, even when it's like this, normally it's much more crowded out there. I'm just not convinced that it's not a weather thing right now.
Right. Probably is.
I keep hearing rumors like ICE has been spotted in the West Loop or something like that. What he was campaigning on was millions of deportations, and I just don't see that happening.
No.
There'll just be some highly publicized cases, so you can think it'll probably be like the same number of deportations that we had before, but they'll say it was so much more and that they were all criminals, and it's all a scam from our scammer barons.
That's right.
It's all a scam. It's going to make you pay more for your products. It's going to lower your level of wages. It's going to lower availability of materials and products. Like somebody pointed out, I think last week, there is a now hiring sign at the border. Their business model, they can't use AI to replace everything yet. And the fact that it's not capable of replacing everything yet doesn't mean they're not going to try.
Right.
Just because AI can't really do your job doesn't mean that they're not going to give your job to AI, at least for a while. But we've also seen these bad ideas just blow up. Walgreens had an announcement in the past week or so saying, yeah, that thing where we were just going to lock all our stuff in cases all the time, turned out that wasn't so good for sales. A couple of very expensive mistakes. Even to Walgreens lately, they've got all those screens up on all of the refrigerators, so you can't see in. You just see like a video representation of what's supposed to be behind the door.
Oh, wow.
And when you're not around, it'll be a commercial. But the thing is, they don't always work. And you can't just see what's in there. So they spent something like $200 million in putting these in, and now they're trying to get out of their contracts. And the same thing, too. They went all in saying we've had just so much theft that we have to lock everything up now. They were greatly exaggerating how much theft was to begin with. It was really they just didn't want to hire enough people. But then having to get everything, keeping everything like allergy pills behind a glass door under lock and key. Strangely enough, for one thing, you need more employees just to open it up. And for another, people aren't going to buy it. I mean, how many times have, I think our friend Henry said, how many times have I gone to Walgreens for allergy meds, couldn't find anybody to open it, so I just ordered it from Amazon.
Right.
And I'm sure I have done the same thing. And strangely enough, who could not have told them that this was going to happen? Like, who are the CEOs of this who approve these things? That's one thing I think across all the jobs I've ever had, with one exception, one thing nobody ever says is, man, those guys in corporate, those guys are smart. One exception is I knew people at Starbucks when I worked there off and on in the early 2000s. There were people who thought Howard Schultz was the man. And I always kind of looked at him like, really? Really? I just work here, man. You don't have to, swallow all of this stuff. So, Mike, you ever work at a place where people were telling you that the boss was just the best?
Yeah. Those people have Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
I think oftentimes.
Yeah. And all this kind of reminds me. There's a whole thing about the tranches of the meme coins. They'll be sold off in the form of tranches. This is one of the financial things that is a little bit over my head. I let other people deal with it. My investment portfolio, such that it is very uncomplicated. But we have got a break coming up in about 10 seconds. So we'll get back to talking about tranches, which is what everybody wants to hear. Coming up in a couple of minutes here. I'm Adam, filling in for Patty on WCPT. Driving it home. We'll be back in just a moment.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
Count me among the Americans that want to see change. Now, of course, the change I was looking for would have put Kamala Harris in the White House. Americans voted for change. They just, Trump, I think they got the wrong kind. Still, I'm grateful for elections, even when we lose. They tell us about ourselves, and we can't ignore that and shouldn't.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
There's so much that goes on behind closed doors.
On WCPT 820.
All right, WCPT 820, Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I'm Adam Selzer, filling in for Patti today. So we're talking about tranches, just what everybody wants to say. These meme coins are going to be sold out in tranches, which I only know from that movie, The Big Short, the whole thing about shorting the AA tranches, a movie that made it seem for a minute like you could understand what happened with the mortgage crisis. And what I always think is I already knew what was going on wrong with that, because a couple of years before 2008, I went to a party at the tobacco shop where Mike was working at the time. And it was like a free cigars and booze thing, and I was just chatting with people there. And I was 25, 26, floating from coffee shop job to coffee shop job while, living off the fairly low advances for young adult novels. And I remember talking to a guy there who absolutely insisted to me that he could get me a mortgage. Mm-hmm. And I had no verifiable source of income. I was mostly self-employed at the time, and he was absolutely like, "No, man, just interest only. Just come see me. I will get you a mortgage. We're going to get you like a single-family home here in Chicago." And of course, there was a crash that this kind of thing was going on.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of movies, movies and entertainment in general, we've lost a lot of people in the last couple of days.
Let's spend a few minutes talking about David Lynch.
Yes. So first, I want to bring up Jules Pfeiffer died as well, the cartoonist. Also, I didn't realize he was a screenwriter and wrote the script to Popeye, Robert Altman's Popeye.
Which, of course, is a fantastic film.
It really is. It's widely hated by people who saw it when they were 6 and thought it was going to be a cartoon and never forgave it for not being one.
Right.
But it's a brilliant film, honestly. It captures the vibe of those early Popeye shorts so well. And it features one of my favorite lines, "I ain't no physicist, but I know what matters." and also Garth Hudson of the band and Barry Goldberg of Chicago, who played keyboard when Dylan went electric in Newport 65. But let's talk David Lynch for a minute. Mike, you are much more familiar with Lynch's works than I am.
Well, he's one of the biggest influences on not only on my filmmaking, but on my life. I mean, Adam, along with Bob Dylan, I mean, he is someone whose work I have been engaging with for over 35 years. I discovered him when I was 13, which was around the same time that I discovered Dylan. And there's never been a period of time since then where I have not been watching his films and looking forward to new films. So with his death, it's really the end of an era because there are no more David Lynch films to look forward to. Twin Peaks Season 4 will never happen now. Yeah. But we're lucky that we got the 3rd season in 2017. I mean, it's a miracle that he was able to get Showtime to give him the tens of millions of dollars it took to make that. Right. Because it's the weirdest thing that's ever been on TV. And there's something genuinely subversive about what he did with that.
Yeah, there's a great picture of you from the early 90s looking like the most early 90s teenager there is in that shot. Picture of you talking to David Lynch.
Yeah, long hair, flannel shirt tied around the waist. I ran into him by chance at the Salish Lodge in Snoqualmie, Washington, because he was staying there and Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me was premiering there. And so, I was 17 at the time, and I got to thank him for bringing Twin Peaks back in film form. This was when the movie was coming out, which everybody hated at the time. Now, of course, it's a beloved cult classic. Like pretty much everything he's done, it's been reevaluated over time. And, since he died, I've watched a couple of his films. I watched The Straight Story. Did you ever see that?
No, I never saw that one.
Oh, it's so good. It's rated G.
Yeah.
So
I'm familiar with the story. I'm an Iowa kid. We hear about these things. Yeah.
So I watched that thinking, remembering it to be kind of a gentle comedy, and I thought this will be a good. And I was just a sobbing wreck, Adam. It is such an emotional film, and it's all about old age and dying, and it's a very, very beautiful film. But being in that frame of mind of thinking about David Lynch dying, it just hits differently.
I assume so.
And then a couple nights ago, I also watched The Elephant Man, which I had not seen in years. And my God, it's the same thing. I just was destroyed by watching this movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen, it was fairly late. I was a little too young for Twin Peaks when it first came out by like a couple of years.
Yeah, I was 14 when
I was like 9 or 10. Yeah. So I didn't catch it until after college, really. And then I got kind of hung up on the second season.
Yeah.
Because the second season takes kind of a nosedive quality towards the end. Totally. I haven't gotten into the recent season. I watched a couple episodes and enjoyed them, and I feel like I need to put aside a time when I need a project.
Yeah. For this. When you have 18 hours to spare.
When I have more than that, because you're going to have to analyze it and think about it and really get immersed in it. And I will need some Adderall, I'm sure. So I just don't have the attention span for long films most of the time. My attention span. My parents were just remarking that they've been watching old episodes of Sonny and Cher on YouTube, and the pacing on them is so slow by today's standards.
Well, what I'm watching now is Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
As a means of relaxing.
Yeah.
So what I like to do when it's the end of a long day and I'm tired, I like to do an edible and throw on Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
And it is so much fun to just go. It's such a cozy show.
Right.
You know, it's like you're going back in time to a simpler time.
Yeah.
Watching an old lady solve crimes.
Yeah. You know, a lot of writers put up their writing playlists on Spotify. I made one that said the only writing playlist you need, losers. And it's just the Murder, She Wrote theme over and over and over and over and over again. You know, Columbo is another one that's kind of had a renaissance.
Yeah.
It's kind of had a moment in recent years. And it's another one. It's definitely slow.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother you watching it when it's slow.
Right.
It just kind of unfolds.
Right.
And also there's with that and probably Murder, She Wrote as well, and I was watching a bit of Karate Kid earlier today. The first thing that really struck me in Karate Kid is the line of cars parked in Newark, New Jersey in 1984. It's like red, brown, orange, blue, green, red, orange. It takes a while before there's a white, silver, or black car, which is all you see on the road anymore. It's just like the colors of the car were so different.
Yeah.
And the same thing watching Columbo is just watching all the 70s stuff going by in the background. It's like I've only ever seen a couple episodes of the Brady Bunch, but all I did was look at the furniture.
Yeah.
and I love watching the furniture in that show. I saw the same thing with a couple episodes of That Girl a while ago. It came up on Tubi.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it was, you know, a 60s TV show.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Yeah, it's just that aspect of it. You see the same thing. I was watching some episodes of Dobie Gillis.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to watch because I had always heard that the characters in Scooby-Doo were based on characters from Dobie Gillis.
I need to see that.
And you see it almost immediately.
Yeah.
Zelda doesn't show, who is clearly the basis for Velma, doesn't show up too much for a while. But Fred is absolutely Dobie Gillis. Shaggy is absolutely Maynard G. Krebs. And it's just completely obvious. But a lot of it was just like the 50s stuff of it. Was like the teacher who's trying to be the young hip teacher. He's the English teacher. He seems like he's a million years old. He was actually like 38.
Right.
But he says, you know, when trying to show how hip he is, you know, I have the biggest collection of Fats Domino and Kingston Trio albums in the entire tri-state area. And then challenges all the kids to write a jazz song. And Dobie writes one that is very much a country folk tune, but just got lumped into jazz. It's all just coffee house music, I guess.
Right.
It's interesting to see just how culture was at the time and things like that. And, you know, we can go on all day about things like this, but the fun about Tubi is a lot of shows that I, you know, maybe seen a listing somewhere.
Yeah.
And you can just sit and binge the entire thing.
Well, I'm old school. I'm renting Murder, She Wrote from the library on DVD.
Old school DVDs. Like, you know, back in my day, we had to rewind our Ataris in cursive.
Yeah.
Until the streetlights came on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely remember having Murder, She Wrote on when I was a kid.
It's so good. I mean, Angela Lansbury is a phenomenal actress.
Oh, yeah.
And part of what makes it fascinating, especially when you're high, it's kind of like the contrast between her and everyone else, which I think is also true of Columbo, because the other actors are kind of theatrical, kind of hammy, people who are on TV who just kind of aren't good enough to be in movies. And then you have Angela Lansbury, who's like this classically trained actress who just...
Yeah, I just watched her in The Court Jester.
Just crushes every line. It's just like utterly believable.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think how many times. I remember briefly in my elementary school, Murder, She Wrote became a popular substitute for like what you would say, holy crap, or like if somebody made a really great move in Foursquare, there was a Murder, She Wrote.
It is kind of badass.
It is. It really is. Maybe we should work on bringing that back along with Scammer Barons. We'll look at the returns in 4 years. The Scammer Barons have all been thrown out. Murder, She Wrote. When the numbers from Gwinnett County come in. We're just going to put that out of the universe, the great Pinterest board, in which we pin all of our hopes and dreams. So once again, I've been Adam Selzer. I'm an author and historian here in Chicago. My new book is called Graveyards of Trinity Church and St. Paul's, A History and Guide. These are a couple of graveyards in Manhattan in New York that are full of people like Alexander Hamilton and also a lot of actual pirates. There are poets. There are gamblers. There are all kinds kinds of weirdos buried in these old 18th century churchyards. You can order that wherever you prefer to order books. Mike, do you have any new products coming up?
Well, I've got my short film, Handle with Care, just became available to stream last month.
All right.
So you can check that out on the website, splittoothmedia.com. And that's an 8-minute short. You can watch for free. And I'm going to start a new feature titled Hecla, which I hope to shoot before the year is over.
Oh, about the character from Relative.
It's a spin-off of Relative, so stay tuned.
Excellent. All right, so Randy Road is coming up next. We've got it out in a second. I'm Adam Selzer for Patti Vasquez. Thanks, everybody.